When I was 18 years old, I decided to start a company together with my friend Felix, whilst I was still studying at university. The idea was simple. It was a hair tie that doesn't leave a mark in your hair and doesn't give you headaches. Today, 4 years later, we have a team of 80 people. We have distribution in 70 countries around the world, and we ship our tiny products by the container. So what did I learn from this? Let me take you 4 years back in time. I was 18. I had just gotten into the University of Warwick. I had just arrived there, and I couldn't be any happier. And then, not even 2 months into my degree, I have a crisis, and I realized the only thing I have done so far is party. Party. Go to a lecture or two, I actually did do that. And party some more. I wasn't finding myself, which is what I thought the entire purpose of this thing was. The only two things I seemed to keep on finding were Red Bull and vodka. And there I was looking or thinking about this long road ahead of me to get to my career goals, and I had this feeling like you do when you're sitting in an endless queue on the highway. So one day I got invited to go to yet another party. Bad taste was the theme, and in preparation for that, I was really excited, so I put on a horrendous outfit, some over-the-top makeup, and I was about to leave the door and go to this party when I realized, hey, I didn't do anything with my hair. And then I remembered I have one of these old telephones with an old telephone cord, and I thought, well, if I unplug that and I tie a knot in it, that looks kind of like a hair tie, doesn't it? So that's exactly what I did. I unplugged it, I tied a knot in it, I put it in my hair, and I thought, this looks very bad taste. I'm definitely ready for this party now. So I go out, I enjoy the party, I think. I don't remember so much what happened that night, but I do remember what happened the next morning. So I wake up with a telephone cord still in my hair, and the first thing that occurs to me is, I don't have a headache. Now, for the men in this room, you're probably not going to understand this comment. But for the women, you've probably experienced this. You have a normal hair tie in your hair for a longer period of time, and that tugs on your scalp, and that gives you a headache. And that is something that I suffered with almost every day. So there I am with this big telephone cord in my hair, and I walk over to the mirror, and I take it out, and I realize, although I have a kink in my hair, it's significantly less than it would be with a normal hair tie. And that was it. That is where the idea was born. So I immediately pick up the phone and I call Felix, who's my business partner today, and I tell him the idea, and he thinks it's absolutely ridiculous. But because he was very much in the same Red Bull and vodka and mental queuing crisis that I was in, he said, you know what, Sophie, let's give it a try. And we did. So these are the 3 key things that I have learned from starting my own company. 1, it has become cheaper than ever before to start up your own company. Like cheaper than it was just 10 or 15 years ago. 2nd, the product does not need to be complex whatsoever to succeed. Believe me. And 3rd, you do not need to be an industry insider or expert whatsoever to be able to start a company in that given sector. So why is this interesting? I think a lot of students in high schools and universities have flirted with the idea of starting their own business. At least I had. And usually went something along the lines of this. So you're in high school, you're in your lunch break, you're chilling on the couches like a lazy group of sea lions with your friends talking about music and funny YouTube cat videos and whatever else. And then suddenly one of you has a crazy story, a crazy idea, and you say, you know what? We should start a business together. And then you fantasize about how that idea goes from an idea to a product, and from a product to a company, and suddenly you're selling that thing all over the world, and it's so much fun, and it's so awesome. And then you go back to sipping on your Cokes, and the entire thing is forgotten. Now, why was I not taking my ideas seriously? Why are these ideas never actually given a chance to become a real business idea? Why? Well, I can tell you why I never did before my idea of the hair tie. Because it was my mindset. It was the way I imagined my life would, but more importantly, should progress. And it included the 4 following steps. Step 1, get a bachelor's degree. The purpose here is to find yourself and figure out what key markets and segments you're interested in, becoming a whole person kind of deal. Step 2, you then go on to do a master's degree where you further look into those key areas and markets that you're interested in. And then comes step 3. That's the point where you land that epic job at a consultancy or a big renowned company, and you get that experience under your belt. And then, finally, you think, boom, this is it. Now I have the experience, I have the financial standing, and I have the knowledge to finally start that business with that idea that I had when I was sitting in high school on those couches. Now, there's nothing wrong with this plan. However, I have learned that there exists a dramatic shortcut to it. So these are the 3 key things that I have learned that I know now that I did not know when I was 18 and I started my business. 1, it has become a lot cheaper than ever before to start your own business. So let's take a look at this. How much did Felix and I initially invest into our company? The first investment, $400,000. Okay, I'm just kidding. It wasn't $400,000. $4,000. $4,000, that is it. $4,000. For those of you who do not have a value for money, $4,000 gets you the equivalent in England of about 1,350 vodka Red Bulls, I checked. Okay, so let's look at a breakdown of where these $4,000 went. The first thing we had to do, once we had the idea, was to look for a producer. We found that producer on the internet, so that was for free. We then very quickly realized, okay, we need an agent to communicate with that producer. We found her on the internet as well. That was also for free. And all the communication we did with her was either via emails or via Skype, so that was for free. I'm not gonna count in the cost of the internet here because we were university students and internet is complimentary. Then the first thing we actually had to invest some money into was Photoshop, because we realized, hey, we need a logo. So that was about $130. Then we realized, well, we should probably make a website, an online store. And after searching on the internet for a bit, we found Shopify. And Shopify is a lovely website which allows you to put your own online store on there absolutely for free for a trial period of 14 days. So that's what we did. Then mine and Felix's time investment. I would say for free, probably even saving money by working late nights and not doing something else instead. And finally, what was the bulk of the investment, which was just shy of $4,000 to buy the first round of stock. But that was really it. Then, the second thing I learned is, the product does not need to be complex at all to succeed. I think if we take a spectrum and we put nuclear reactors on this end and the stone axe on this end, our product comes pretty close to the stone axe. Now, simplicity in a product is a beautiful thing because you either roll out fast or you fail cheap. It also means that if you had that idea, most probably so did or so will someone else. So if you choose to delay, probably somebody else will do that for you. And that would just be a shame, wouldn't it? So I truly believe that if I had left my idea of the hair tie until I had reached step 4 in my career plan, that either A, somebody else would have done that idea for me, or that I simply would have seen the idea as too risky and too ridiculous to risk my entire professional career for. Basically, economic risk and risk to yourself gets bigger and bigger as you get older and older. So the best time to start your idea would be straight away. That is a picture of our product, by the way. And finally, the third thing I learned is, you do not need to be an industry insider or expert whatsoever to be able to start a company in a given market. Now, I can testify to you that neither Felix nor I were industry insiders or experts whatsoever in hair ties or hair accessories at the time that we started our company. In the meantime, we know a creepy amount of stuff about hair ties, which is probably more odd for Felix than it is for me because, first of all, he's male, and second of all, he has short hair. And it's really gotten to the point with him where Felix no longer goes up to a girl to hit on her. No, Felix goes up to a girl because she's wearing an interesting hair tie, and it usually goes something along the lines of this. Hi, I like your hair tie. How much did it cost, and where did you get it, and what colors does it come in? And the reaction of the girls is usually something along the lines of, what? Anyway, because Felix and I were not business, industry insiders, or experts, we did not have a basis of structure or distribution to go on. And what we did have, though, was a vision, and that was one, to brand a hair tie so that it is associated with a lifestyle. And what that allowed us to do is not only sell our hair ties into the traditional outlets where you would find them, such as drugstores and department stores. No, we were able to sell them into hair salons, pharmacies, retail, fashion outlets. I mean, we even sell on airlines. We sell on cruise liners. And what that allowed for us is to get a period of essentially exclusivity in those outlets where we really had time to build our brand and establish ourselves in those markets. Had we been industry insiders and experts, we might have set ourselves the psychological limit and thought, maybe there's only so many outlets we can possibly sell our product in, and maybe there's only so much branding that you can do for a hair tie. Now, at this point, I wish to repeat myself. There is nothing wrong with the traditional career path. In fact, it can be so great for so many people. What I am saying is this. If it is your dream to someday start your own company, run your own company, and work towards that every day, then consider taking the shortcut. Consider speeding on the curb. Consider starting your business before you have family obligations, before you have a CV to squander, and before you have a mortgage. Basically, start your company now while the risk is still low. What is the worst thing that can happen if you're a student at university and your business fails? You probably lose something along the lines of the equivalent of 1,350 vodka Red Bulls. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but that's it. And I can guarantee you, you will have learned so much along the way. So the next time that you find yourself in high school chilling by the couches, or you're walking between lecture halls at university, or you might even be having a drink with your colleagues after work, and you hear yourself or you hear someone else saying, "Not now," when considering a business idea, ask yourself, why is later better? Why not now? Thank you.